So, over on the old video channel, I tried out the Kyle Rittenhouse meme game that went viral a week or two ago. Acquitted, self-defense versus the brain dead. The story goes, you play as this generic American teenager who just so happens to look like Kyle Rittenhouse. He's just received his not guilty verdict for his textbook self-defense killing of leftist activists. And due to that highly publicized event, another horde of leftist activists have appeared at the courthouse to protest. You need to defend yourself with lethal force once again until it's time for your next court date for that killing. The joke being that it's a top-down shooter with tower defense elements, and the time in between waves of enemies is the trial judging your actions during the previous wave. I get the joke, it's pretty clever. And the game is also full of equally clever little Easter eggs, not just the story and the fact that the kid is clearly Kyle Rittenhouse. The zombie who attacks with a skateboard is missing his bicep, referencing the wounds of one of the people who Kyle shot. Some zombies attack with bike locks, referencing a 2017 Berkeley riot where Eric Clanton, a professor, as part of an Antifa black bloc, hit his victims with a bike lock. Other zombies appear to use spin kicks as their primary method of attack, referencing a 2018 event in Toronto where a progressive soy boy kicked a pregnant woman who was filming him during an abortion protest. The generic female zombie is clearly Big Red, though the game randomizes her hair color for flavor. And though a lot of people are calling the first boss zombie Trigglypuff, I'm not exactly seeing the connection. The size might be there, but the hair is all wrong. Same with the second boss zombie and the "it is ma'am" person. But nonetheless, everybody can understand the stereotypes being appealed to here. The soy boy hipster, the black bloc communist, the radical feminist, the ham beast, each of them taking on this all-American kid who is cut straight from the cloth of somebody like Mike from Star Tropics, or Zeke from Zombies Ate My Neighbors. In fact, the game plays a lot like Zombies Ate My Neighbors too, both of them being top-down shooters where you take on hordes of zombies. Though Acquitted, not being confined to a Sega Genesis, can put a whole bunch more zombies on the screen. In fact, the game it feels the most like, at least insofar as style is concerned, is Death Road to Canada, another top-down shooter where you take on hordes of zombies. But rather than being a wave-based tower defense game, Death Road to Canada is a roguelike, where the maps and the loot within are randomly generated, and what events you encounter on the road are also entirely random. The reason I'm bringing all this up right now is because I know that Acquitted is the meme game right now, and people with a more libertarian political persuasion are laughing their heads off, thinking how triggered the libs must be. And, you know, they are. All you have to do is go on Twitter and see it. However, a thematically similar game coming from the socialist perspective, Tonight We Riot, came out last year, and the situation was entirely reversed. Terminally online commies were praising it for its humor and gameplay, and those few right-leaning people who actually heard of it groaned in exasperation at yet another bit of cultural subversion. Each side treated each of these games exactly as expected. I will say though, I got Acquitted on sale for $5. It's 10 now, sorry, while Tonight We Riot is 15. According to the Steam database, Tonight We Riot doesn't really go on sale all that much, though that 90% discount was pretty nice. The database gives us more information to look at too. The highest number of concurrent players of Tonight We Riot was its launch day with 84 people. It did have a shit ton of Twitch viewers though, but those were almost all Hassan and his orbiters streaming the game. They all played it exactly once, all at the same time, on launch day, and never touched it again. The game remained dead until Acquitted came out, when people started comparing the two, at which point it hit its second peak of 17 players. So we can sit here and laugh at the failure of Tonight We Riot, how Hassan's massive viewership probably did more to hurt than help, since it clearly didn't translate into sales, and how the meager social media presence of the game has basically devolved into virtue signaling and commie posting, except that one tweet about them by Andy No that went viral, where they ended up hiding the only reply that called them pedophiles. In other words, a bunch of online socialist game developers put a lot of work into making Tonight We Riot, and it turned out to be a gigantic fucking failure. And if you want to have some schadenfreude at that, fine. But at the same time, Acquitted actually looks to be on the same trend. Yeah, it got that bump from the quartering, just like Hassan gave the other one, but it's still maxed out at 137 people playing it. By the way, you see that second spike in Twitch viewers right there? I'm pretty sure that's Game Boomers, my gaming channel, which hey, you should be following if you're watching this. Let's make that spike grow. But the reason I'm talking about this isn't necessarily to shit on these games, but to point out a simple truth. The purpose of a political meme game is to exist. The actual playing of the game just seems to be secondary. I've played a lot of these political meme games in the channel. In 2016, 2018, 2020, whenever an election came around, I pulled out a few garbage tier Trump games and had a great time on stream with the audience. Games like President Trump the Way in Uganda and Lock Her Up, the Trump Supremacy, only have value in that you can laugh at the fact that they exist. Beyond the Trump meme skin of them, their gameplay loops range from extremely shallow to non-existent. They look and control like Newgrounds Flash games, and even at like $1 or less, they're not exactly worth it. Probably the only good game in this niche subgenre is Mr. President, where you play as a Secret Service agent trying to push Trump out of the the way of an assassination attempt while running through a ragdoll physics world. And I blame this one's success on the Game Grumps, as well as the fact that ragdoll physics games are themselves their own meme, separate from politics. The reason that people seem to make these games, at least in my opinion, is that they're hoping to go viral on Twitter or get some clickbait article in the media published about them, and then use that exposure to springboard into something else, whether that be a Twitch career or a game dev career or whatever. And to be honest, none of these games are actually any good. Yeah, I know everyone's fawning over Acquitted right now, but once the joke gets old, what else is there? The game becomes punishingly hard after a handful of levels, where the zombies become bullet sponges to the point of tedium. The weapons are poorly balanced. Because ammo infinitely regenerates, there's never any reason to use the handgun over the AR-15. There is sometimes a decent tactical choice to be made, between using the shotgun to one-shot kill a single target, or the AR-15 to spray and pray into a crowd, but that's presuming that you actually find the shotgun. Weapons in this game seem to appear only on specific levels. Once you grab them, you have them for the rest of your save file, but if you miss them, you're just shit out of luck. That method of unlocking new weapons might work for an adventure game, but not really for an arcade-style top-down shooter, where you expect weapons to act like power-ups with limited time or ammo, not permanent unlocks. In roguelikes, there are permanent unlocks that you can miss, sure, but that genre also tends to have the game restart after death, so that you can have a different build in each run. But Acquitted doesn't do that either. You just restart the same level after you die. During the stream, we missed picking up the sniper rifle and the battle axe weapons, and I never saw either of them appear ever again. Grenades also infinitely regenerate, so there's no reason to save them for when you need them. All of this does lead to fast-paced, action-filled gameplay. And sure, that's to the game's advantage to a point, but since you're not managing limited resources, the rising difficulty of the game has to come from turning your enemies into bullet sponges. And at some point, that just stops being fun. Basically, once the Kyle Rittenhouse joke wears off, you're stuck with a mediocre Newgrounds style game you'll probably never play again. For $1, that's probably fine, but $5 or $10, not so much, at least to me. Now, maybe you just want to support artists and creators who are willing to make games with a sort of political bent. Fair enough, there aren't many of those out there right now. And maybe showing them support, keeping them going, is more important than actually liking their game. Like I've mentioned in videos before, the left is employing Gramsci-styled cultural subversion tactics right now. And frankly, one of the best ways to counteract it is with your own side's cultural products, and that means funding them. I guess I'm just a tiny bit sad that this is where we are. These games seem to get made not necessarily to make a good game, but to appeal to terminally online, always politically engaged culture warriors who want something that they can post on their social media to trigger their opponents. And if enough people post it or get triggered, then maybe a YouTuber or a streamer will make some content about it. This kind of stuff used to not be this. It used to be flash games made for fun, not chasing reactions online. I'm not out here necessarily saying that this should stop. I'm not denigrating the people who made Acquitted, or the people who are enjoying playing it. I'm not shitting on the Quartering for making the video, even though I don't fully believe him when he says the game is actually awesome. The other side is doing the same damn thing. The left agitprops, the right agitprops. Kotaku, being the piss rag they are, published this article. Far-right developers' Kyle Rittenhouse Steam shooter isn't edgy, it's embarrassing. In a desperate attempt to upset the left, this badly crafted shooter has nothing to say. Here's a life tip from Uncle Dev, kids. If somebody has little in the way of actual critique, but says this is embarrassing over and over, they don't actually have anything worthwhile to say. Case in point, why can't far-right provocateurs just be good at anything? Kyle Rittenhouse was charged with the fatal shooting of 2 men in August 2020, when he fired at unarmed protesters during civil unrest in Kenosha. The case in November 2021 starkly divided Americans, with the left viewing his acquittal as a miscarriage of justice with racist roots, while the right saw it as a victory for the right to bear arms in self-defense. The chillingly named Nordic Empire Games see it, based on the available evidence, as something to gloat about. What, do you think these people are Nazis looking for the fucking Tesseract or something? Wherever you land on the matter, and let's not beat around the bush, he got away with killing people. I'd hope a person's central thought would be, innocent people died, lives were ended. Dude, these are people who were mindlessly rushing and attacking this kid. He got away with defending himself, as he should. And they weren't exactly innocent. One was a pedophile, one was a wife beater. Like, okay, I mean, it doesn't really matter regarding this, but still. Jesus Christ, Kotaku. You guys have been shit for over a decade. How are you still going? Look at how they frame the conversation. Nordic Empire's website makes some grand claims about the vast importance of their existence. They are 3 young men fully dedicated to the development of games that are fun and engaging, while at the same time staying committed to what is right and true. But then, why make Acquitted? This is a game that, despite its implied bravado, its bold declarations, doesn't make any statement. Beyond a character who could be anyone, clumsily shooting at some gray-skinned zombies carrying early 90s Soviet flags. It fails to defend Rittenhouse's actions, let alone portray a coherent argument for self-defense. It reduces the complexity and tragedy of the original incident to absolute nothingness, to a banal and tiresome experience that is somehow impervious to semiotics. I mean, yeah, the point is that the game's a one-off joke, which is why I said earlier humor that it gets old once you're done laughing at the joke. But Kotaku is pretending like the joke doesn't even exist at all. Maybe because it's people like them who are getting made fun of. Compare this with how Kotaku treated Tonight We Riot. Politics has become a dirty word in gaming, especially when angrily screamed, or, as is usually the case, frantically typed by a vocal minority of reactionary video game fans. But for more progressive players, games often aren't political enough. Or, when they do take a position, they push objectionable conservative concepts like capitalism, imperialism, and militarism. Tonight We Riot bucks these trends by proudly wearing its decidedly leftist ideology on its sleeve. Just like Kotaku proudly wears its own leftist ideology on the front page, which is their right to do. But it also explains why their articles are consistently partisan hackery, why nobody gives a fuck about what they have to say, and why they're only just barely afloat after 10 years of crisis after crisis. I can't wait until the day when we can finally piss on their grave, lads. I guess I'm just saying that I am very tired that this is how the online political meme game is played now. A friend of mine, and a supporter of my channel, has told me in private several times that whenever a game looks good, he meticulously combs over the developers for any hint of progressive toxicity. This is exactly the kind of thing that we decried them for 5 years ago. And they responded with everything is political. And unfortunately, now that they've made everything political, it kinda has to be. I said this recently, maybe it was in an abortion video, maybe the Don't Say Gay one, maybe it was a weekly sip, I don't know, I've done a lot of content right now. But recently I said something like, if Team A only passes the ball to members of Team A, but Team B passes the ball to members of Teams A and B, Team B will inevitably lose. As non-leftists, that is the situation that we find ourselves in. We should not be treating everything like it is political. That is the path to totalitarianism. But if the socialists and progressives continue to do so, we will lose, simply because there will be battlefields that we will not fight on, and those automatically become ceded ground to them. A neutral space cannot exist in a power vacuum. It must be cultivated and protected by the dominant power, with the full understanding that for it to be truly neutral, the power must paradoxically allow for positions within it to be contrary to his own, while simultaneously not allowing those positions to undermine the space's integrity. The difference between us and the leftists is, I hope, that we will rule with grace. We won't actually have the totalizing worldview. We will consider the value of a private life, and we won't insist that everything be made political. We will maintain that neutral space. But none of these stances mean much if the subversives are still subverting. And that means, when the commies make a shitty commie game for a quick turnaround, planting their flag on that small hill in the culture war, inevitably somebody has to come around and make a shitty Kyle Rittenhouse game for the same reason. I just wish it wasn't like this. I also wish it was a better game.